everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to give y'all an update on my book that I've been working on since December of 2021. If this is your first time hearing about my book, or if you're just lost in general, I'll link Progress 1 and 2 in the description, as I would recommend watching both of these updates first to understand what is happening. Now, because it has been a little over a month since my last progress update, I'll go ahead and refresh y'all on what is happening. So I am currently writing a book called The Charm. The Charm is based off of Storytime 40, which was about my 8th grade school year. The book goes into great detail about how I struggled with depression and suicidal thoughts during the school year, and gives you a look on the inside of how it feels to deal with these mental illnesses. I do this by not only making myself the main character, but also making the book extremely vulgar in nature in order to demonstrate how rough life was during this time. In order to make the book as vulgar as I can, I decided to make this book a coming of age and a horror thriller. Anyways, let's start off with quantitative progress. So I am now 556 pages into The Charm and have written 75 chapters. This puts me at 97,443 words, meaning I am only a few chapters away from reaching the 100,000 word mark. This is actually less than what I predicted in my last progress update. In fact, I believe that I am now 75% done with the book. Therefore, my new estimate for the length of the book will be 125,000 words at around 100 chapters on approximately 800 to 850 pages in length. So, moving on to qualitative progress, the last update left off on chapter 44. From chapter 36 to chapter 44, I was having to deal with the death of Leslie. This next section goes from the first bus fight after my suspension, chapter 45, to the darkest chapter, chapter 75. However, because 30 chapters is a lot, I'm going to talk about each one, but I will discuss most chapters in a condensed setting. Anyways, in chapter 45, we see Riley making fun of me on the bus. This is until a tree limb goes through the bus and pokes her right into her hair and gets her all dirty. She ends up having to be picked up by her mom, and they also get the bus driver fired because Riley is a spoiled brat whose mom is also a Karen. So while the chapter overall is pretty funny, it unfortunately has a sad ending. But then for chapter 46, we see this new bus driver. She sucks because she resorts back to the old seating chart where Justin sat behind me and Riley sat beside me. So I have to deal with these two once again. However, the bus driver at first seems confident because she gets on to Justin when he insults me. But pretty soon, she gets tired of dealing with him, so she just lets him do his thing while I have to sit through all that once again. Chapter 47 is a swim practice chapter where my coach forces me to do a 1,000 IM because I'm apparently slacking off on something or warm-ups, whatever. Which is completely stupid because it's literally the point of a warm-up. You use it to get pumped up for the practice or meet, and you should go slow on it. But I said I ain't doing that, so I hopped out of the pool and left practice early. In chapter 48, we have a nightmare chapter where me and Mom are on our way to a swim meet in Columbia, South Carolina. But then we end up getting caught on a tornado while on I-77, and so we have to take cover in a 7-Eleven less than a mile after reaching the South Carolina border. The tornado sweeps by and destroys the entirety of York County, a suburban county south of Charlotte, as well as of course the county that this chapter takes place in. But that's when the demonic figure appears and he kills Mom. He then attempts to kill me, but I wake up before he does. In chapter 49, we see my science teacher eat lunch with me in the cubicle. We talk for a little while and stuff until a food fight erupts, so she takes me back to the classroom where she and the other teachers take care of the fight. In chapter 50, we see me receiving death threats on YouTube. I didn't fall asleep, which leads to chapter 51. In this nightmare chapter, I use a Ouija board to revive Leslie, except she's not normal. Because I revived her using the spirits of the devil, she is actually possessed by none other than a demonic figure. This chapter proves that the demonic figure kind of resembles Satan, as religion will be a pretty important part in the later chapters of the book. Anyways, the possessed Leslie tries to kill me, but I wake up before she can. In chapter 52, I take an algebra test, and in chapter 53, it is revealed that I make a 63 on it. In chapter 53, my parents get really mad about it, and basically say that I'm not trying enough and all that other bullcrap parents always say. Then in chapter 54, I have a morning swim practice that actually goes pretty well. After practice, me and Mom go shopping at Walmart, and then the chapter ends with me stabbing myself with Leslie's charm in the bathroom. Chapter 55 is a really brutal chapter. In this chapter, Justin tells a lie on the bus and it goes around to the school and everyone thinks I snitched on him. Justin and his friends constantly harass me throughout this chapter until during PE, we see the first of 3 times I attempt suicide in this book. I try to hang myself using the straps of my book bag, but they aren't strong enough to hold my neck, so I survive. Chapter 56 picks off directly after Chapter 55, where I fix everything up and just spend the rest of PE and lunch harming myself. I continue to get harassed and bullied by Justin and his friends throughout the rest of the day, and then the chapter ends with me harming myself the rest of the day. Chapter 57, I dream that I'm in science and we're doing some experiment. That is until my teacher blows up the experiment and destroys the entire school. Me and her end up being the only survivors, but that's until the demonic figure appears. He attempts to kill me, but my teacher jumps in front of me and takes the knife for me. The demonic figure then brutally kills her, but that's when he goes after me, but I wake up before he can kill me. Chapter 58 deals with grades. So of course after what all happened, my grades have plummeted. And it was true in real life, except my grades never fell below a B. But in the book, most of my grades are lower than a C. So that sucks. To make things even worse for myself, my English teacher discovers that I've been harming myself. Chapter 59 and 60 are rather uneventful, so moving on to Chapter 61, we have another conversation with me and my parents. They interrogate me since they believe I'm depressed and stuff. I admit it and tell them everything, including my harming myself, and after they expose me for lying about it initially. Then in Chapter 62, we have a nightmare chapter based on Dorothy's home and the tornado that takes her away from the Wizard of Oz. I'm walking out in a wheat field when I see Leslie, but that's when the demonic figure appears and creates a violent tornado and throws her into the air and back down. She miraculously survives the fall, but she dies when the demonic figure comes over and stabs her to death. The demonic figure then creates another tornado that lashes me in the air. I then fall, but before I hit the ground, I wake up. Chapter 63, we have a swim practice, but not really a swim practice. Basically, we do land exercises at this practice. From running laps, to push-ups, to sit-ups, to suicides, we do everything you'd expect us to do. Then in Chapter 64, we see two nightmares in the same chapter. But before I have the nightmares, I attempt suicide for the second time by repeatedly stabbing myself with Leslie's charms for hours, with the intent to kill myself. But I end up passing out while soaked in blood. The first nightmare involves me being kidnapped by Justin and Riley and ends up with Riley stabbing me with Leslie's charm. The second nightmare involves them burning Leslie's stuff and eventually burning me at the end. It's based off of Fall Out Boy's Youngblood Chronicles, a mini movie that includes the music videos for each song of their Save Rock and Roll album. In Chapter 65, we have the introduction of my sister. She walks in on me harming myself and is incredibly confused and concerned because she's only 11 years old and in the 5th grade at this time. I explain stuff to her and she asks me to not harm myself. I end up agreeing to this promise and I don't for a week. Chapter 66 is a longer chapter that starts with me eating lunch and my science teacher joined me and ends with Justin harassing me in algebra because he discovers a grade that I made on my homework and in my algebra teacher destroys him. So it starts off pretty good, becomes bad, and then good once again. Chapter 67 is a nightmare based off the nightmare I had when I was 7 years old. I find myself at a place called the Bad Beach. It's a beach at night, and then I see this little girl playing by herself. She attempts to bite me and stuff, but I get away. But then, I see Leslie. We talk, but then the girl comes over and ends up eating Leslie. She then tries to take a bite of me, but I wake up before she can. Chapter 68 is March 1st, 2018, marking a month since Leslie's suicide and a week before the darkest chapter. I spent the whole day thinking about her and all the good memories we had and just grief in general. Chapter 69 is a swim practice chapter in which my coach actually asked me what events I like to be put in at the end of the chapter, boosting my mood and making me excited for this meet. He also asked me what events I don't want to do. But as we'll see in Chapter 70, that ended up being a trick because he put me in the events I didn't want to do. I do them and struggle, and he has a huge fit on me over it. He calls me a disappointment to the team and says I'm the worst swimmer and a bunch of other stuff that a coach should never tell his team. Chapter 70 is also the longest chapter in the book at 20 pages long. Chapter 71 is a nightmare chapter in which I dream that I'm at the peak of a mountain. I find Leslie out in the wilderness, and we talk until she reveals that she's not actually Leslie. In fact, it's actually the demonic figure in disguise. He ends up stabbing me, but I don't wake up. It hurts a lot, but I deal with it. He then throws me off the mountain, and that is when I wake up. Chapter 72 is the final swim practice chapter. My coach shames me for my performance at the beat and punishes me severely. I have an attitude, and he gets especially angry and stuff. Chapter 73 is the second longest chapter in the book, at 15 pages in length. This details Wednesday, March 7th. Throughout this day, Justin continually harasses me and my PE teachers even bully me. I also resort to self-harm once again and stab myself for an incredibly long period of time for the rest of the day until I fall asleep. Then chapter 74, we have the final nightmare chapter that I have. Chapter 76 will be the last nightmare chapter, but it'll actually be my science teacher who dreams it. Anyways, chapter 74 is based off Slipknot's Disaster Piece, a song about lead singer Corey Taylor's experience with being bullied as a kid. Throughout the song, he sings, or screams about, since this is Slipknot we're talking about what he wants to do to his bullies and how they destroyed him on the inside and stuff. In fact, the first line of the song goes, and I quote, "I want to slit your throat and fuck the wound." This chapter is based off this line in particular. In this chapter, I pretty much killed Justin in the same way the clowns in the previous nightmares did. It ends with me shooting myself in the head and seeing the demonic figure in a similar manner as I saw him in the first nightmare chapter. He tells me that this not to be reality, I must kill myself. And that, my friends, is what leads us to chapter 75, also known as the darkest chapter. Due to the severity of this chapter's vulgarness, I am not going to discuss it here, but the chapter does take place on March 8th, 2018. So if you need any explanation, just watch Storytime 40. That should explain why this day is the darkest chapter in the book. And there we have it. That's all the progress I made on the book so far. I still have some more work to do, but it should be smooth sailing from here. Chapter 76 will of course feature my science teacher having her nightmare based off Slipknot's Wait and Bleed, and that will be the very last vulgar chapter in the entire book. Everything afterwards will be very wholesome and pretty encouraging. It'll be in a completely different tone than the rest of the book. And now that I am so far into the book, I can safely say that I expect this book to be finished in either late November or early December. After I finish, I'll release Progress Update 4, but I won't discuss each chapter like I did in this Progress Update just because of spoilers and stuff. But in it, I'll discuss the process I'll need to do before publishing it. As for publishing date, I'm hoping to have this published in early 2023. The day I am aiming for is March 8th, 2023. I want this day in particular because it'll mark the 5-year anniversary since the events of March 8th, and I would think it'd be a very special way to celebrate me being 5 years self-harm free. So yeah, it's all the progress that I've made on the charm. Progress is going really well and is going to be released soon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye!